evening, good afternoon. Monday, I call into order on Monday, March 18th, 2024 at 6:01 PM. The Independent Ethics Review Task Force. Are there any public comments?
There's no public comment.
No public comments, so we will move on to the minutes. However, we will be skipping the minutes today. There were some consistency issues within the packet, and so to give us a accurate review, we will be considering the minutes next meeting. So that completes item number 3. Item number 4 is our workshop. So we will begin our review of and discussion on proposed revisions to the Code of Ethical Conduct. Has everybody received copies? If you're online, I know we're good in person, but the attachments within the packet itself, there were a number of gift policy examples and the table of contents as requested. Does everybody online have those? Okay, great. All right, so I would actually, so upon reviewing the table of contents, does anybody have any opening commentary, questions, or statements in that regard? Because after seeing them and not doing a full reconciliation, I feel like maybe we get into the meat right away instead. But that's, okay. Does anybody have any concerns with that?
No.
No? Okay, great. So gifts. Got our Code of Ethical Conduct gift section. It is section 278 in the City of Sugar Lands Code. And we have several samples. I'm gonna just open it up for initial comments, concerns. I would observe that our language is a little bit different than those samples that we pulled, in the sense that it does not have a blanket statement about deterring gifts that are in excess of a certain amount. Like, we immediately say you just need to disclose, but we don't have any language, and maybe we don't want to, right? Like, that's for discussion, but we definitely don't have any language that says, hey, we don't think you should take gifts in excess of a certain amount, or hey, don't take any gifts that have the perception to influence a decision. Our section simply opens up with basically a disclosure. And I think the City of Georgetown has an example that I wanted to call out of how they sectioned it off. They had like a general rule and then the disclosure requirements. And so if we decide as a group or think that there should be some sort of a rule or a statement that says, hey, don't do this if it's going to influence your decision or a certain dollar amount, am I saying it wrong?
We do require them, if they file the conflict disclosure form, receiving gifts, they are required to abstain and leave the room.
Yes, what I'm suggesting or putting up for discussion, I guess. Most of the cities say like it should be unlawful if it's to influence judgment or discretion, like just a blanket kind of like, hey, don't take this what is it, the reasonable intention of influencing judgment, etc. It's the one thing that I noticed out of all of the other policies that we don't really kind of dive in, and maybe we don't want to. I wanted to call it out as like a difference in our code versus the others. Thoughts around that?
Our code does initially address, you vote for me, you vote for my project, whatever it is, take care of me, down the road, I'll take care of you. We preclude them from participating in discussions or votes if it's happened or money is given. Do we want to look at anything? So they meet. So you vote for me, and I'll get you tickets to Hawaii. Vote for my project.
Post decision.
Yes.
We don't, that's it, we don't have language around that currently, agreed.
What was it we were talking about?
I was saying that it's, City of Georgetown was very clear, like A then B, that's the only reason I'm calling it out, it's not necessarily that I like the language, or, it's just,
Right.
we don't have that kind of general statement in our gift section that would be like a deterrent, like, you should not accept a gift that is offered with the intention of influencing judgment.
That was in the tiny nature of the code, Sugarman code.
Even the
I thought
city of Round Rock one had a good one too.
I don't know if I've written on it.
It's on the next page after, City of Round Rock, that first section too,
Would
wasn't
you like a
bad
green
either.
copy? It's not written on it.
I mean, I did notice that some of them just completely restrict gifts.
Mhm.
So I mean, there's definitely a wide scale here, because if it looked like City of Dallas, you're not even allowed to accept a gift with the exception of like a list of areas.
Yeah, this is so deep. Yeah.
Probably why it all was introduced.
And I mean, to that end, we're also not clear on, you may accept a gift up to a certain amount, or, you know, as long as it's disclosed, we just kind of launch into the disclosure requirements.
I don't think the general rule is a bad idea. I don't know that I wanna say exclusively no gift whatsoever, cause I've seen some organizations where they can't have even accept our annual calendar.
Mhm.
Or we can't bring cookies. I mean, sometimes it gets to it's to such extreme that it's hard to, you know, you just can't, to be nice.
I've had publicly funded clients where couldn't leave a branded pen left behind. I mean, to like, to
Yes.
that level of scrutiny,
Exactly.
so, and unintentionally, right? Like, you're like, no, you need to make sure you take all branded.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a cultural thing. I mean, they even presidents give gifts to each other, you know, like it's a cultural thing too.
And there's events where elected appointed officials are going and they're talking to people, or good things come out of it. Out on the golf course, I don't play golf, but you know, you're in a relaxed environment and both parties are much more open to ideas as well as sitting in a room where good things can come out of it. And if we tell them you can't do any of that, it will lose a lot of opportunities.
Any thoughts online?
Thinking,
you hear
but
me?
not anything to articulate just yet.
Okay, no problem. I just want to make sure we kind of capture you guys in the discussion as much as possible.
Thank you.
Sure. So, I mean, I think, like, it sounds like we're in agreement that nobody wants to just ban
Right.
gifts altogether. I mean, that makes good practical sense. Now, does anybody want to propose a cap or a limit, or are there situations in the city where that doesn't even make sense from a logistical standpoint, where as long as it's disclosed, it's fine? I'm just trying to understand, like, from the business of like council or appointee, like, does a cap ever make sense, or is that not something that is relevant?
I can tell you that I have yet to see a form filled out by anybody appointed to a board or commission. I have only seen city council members who have filled them out, and they tend to be related to, like Centerpoint. We do a lot of business with them, and so sometimes we have that, or sometimes it's, the Space Cowboys. Like, we'll have an opening night, and they'll want to give, you know, they'll just feed us in a suite or something, and so we do disclose those. But depending on how many people go to that, you have the rule of necessity.
Mhm.
And that's kind of an interesting situation because they are our tenants. But yet we still disclose, our council members still disclose if they get a T-shirt from them, or if they get a baseball hat from them. So there are some incidentals that you receive that are disclosed, but I've never had, or actually, when I've seen, I've not seen anyone who's appointed file a form.
No.
I don't think that people get that far in the weeds with us.
And look at the Georgetown example. They list all this stuff. But nowhere does it say you can't just hand an envelope of cash in it.
Yeah.
You can't pay for the plane tickets, you can't, food, entertainment, stuff like that. And so if we get very specific, then we don't cover Bitcoin, because we didn't put it in there, then there's an opportunity for something to happen, where we just have kind of a blanket rule.
Isn't there a term for stuff that is just of so little value it doesn't count? What's that?
De minimis.
That thank you. Yes, I knew it was there. And so can we just basically no gifts other than de minimis kind of gifts? I don't know. I'm just brainstorming right now, but, so that way then it incorporates the things like the cash and the gift cards and those things.
I just worry that it's too
Okay.
like stringent.
Mhm.
You wanna make sure that, in my mind, you don't want to be a barrier for business, but you don't wanna be an inducement for it, right? So you don't want it to be so large or so vague that, you can be providing gifts in hopes of a favorable outcome. But, if it's, as Andrew pointed out, like if you were going golfing and you talk about being in our code, if you're present versus if you're receiving something of monetary value. I think you want to allow for like normal business relationships.
Think back to when we crafted this, or we talked about campaign contributions.
That's a different section.
Right, and,
So that's a
and
different code.
we decided that that's giving money to somebody. But as the city, they're not allowed to say, you can't give money, you can't support candidate.
Now, I will tell you that, I believe San Antonio, I'm not sure another city comes to mind, but they do have limits on how much each person can donate to a campaign. And that goes back to the Fair Campaign Practices Act and their desire to have kind of a level playing field where everybody's got the same cash value to go out and do the electorate, but you can't, have one huge donor pick one person. So that's different than gifts, but there are other cities who have put limits on what the campaign donation, maximum donation they can receive in total, and the max each person can get to them outside of state law.
And all the money that a campaign receives.
There's a disclosure form
Yes.
So,
that Ashley has to.
right, someone's not gonna give $500, then there's no way of finding it out. Right? The campaign would have to do it.
I believe we're gonna start putting this on our website,
Yes. Mhm.
transparency.
Yep.
Ashley's team is very good at that.
So also our policy does not talk about. We talk about certain items and stuff like that, but we don't talk about hard cash. Or gold, or jewelry.
Sure. Or an open versus a closed gift card that got very specific. I don't remember what city that was, but I read one where they differentiated between like the type of gift card.
So in ours, it says gifts of lodging transportation. Could we say any official who receives a gift including? And would that then cover jewelry, cash, Bitcoin, gift cards?
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at me, but I would just tell you that this is from state law. So
Okay,
this is the minimum required by state law. If you want to add more or you want to to expand, that's entirely up to you all.
Because this one, now the state law says you may accept non-cash items of less than $50, because that's, because, you know, I'm a state employee, and that's what I've always been told, that I could accept up to $50.
And that may be under the penal code, depending on what your job duty is whether or not you're an inspector or you're regulatory or approved certain contracts. For the city officials, it'll be chapter 176. I think I provided you all a copy of that state law as the, right behind the table of contents.
Yeah.
So it is, ours is very basic in tracking state law. So if you want to revise it, it really, the state law took away the requirement that you report anything other than the $100 directly. Anything like lodging, transportation, or him, it's no longer part of state law. Well, it is, but it's as, I'm sorry, maybe rephrase it, as a guest. That's the distinction.
I'd like to add something, so any gift, regardless of what it is,
So
if it exceeds a certain amount, has to be reported.
I do like the recommendation of changing it instead of gifts of or gifts including.
Right, right.
I do think that differentiation will help not limit it just to those items.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, Jeff Judy says it's not in the four corners of the page, just can. No offense.
And take it.
If I'm hearing folks correctly, there's an interest then in expanding on the disclosure of gifts statement or section or part A, lodging, transportation or entertainment. There's a preference to go beyond that.
Yes, so that if somebody's receiving like actual like dollars or gift cards or in any item in excess of $100, tangible gift could be included in the disclosure, not saying that you're not allowed to, but saying that you would be required to disclose.
Okay.
You have thoughts around that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out maybe a term that could be almost all inclusive. I'm thinking about other items where there is some kind of financial benefit, but I'm just
I mean,
kind of.
The model code gets very broad and says, an official, et cetera, may not solicit nor accept anything of value directly or indirectly, da, 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 da. So they just like broaden it to of anything of value.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Okay.
and we're not saying that here, but just as an example of how broad it can get.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody made a donation to a charity in somebody's name, or if the appointed or elected officials have their own charity and so made a donation to it, do we involve ourselves in that? Does that have to be disclosed? To give it?
I would say, I mean, this is my opinion, but you want to make sure it's clear enough and you want to be able to follow it, right? And so if you go down too far, sometimes then it becomes difficult to police in a way.
So if we keep it general, if you receive a gift in excess of. Either directly or indirectly.
Well, then it could say examples could include.
I mean, this one, he talks about it benefits, I mean, benefits. The acceptance and benefits.
Which one are you looking at, you know?
It's like this on page 38 and 42, the understate employees. They kind of. The following gifts are benefits, and they give examples.
So would that then also be expanded to, so if we say benefit, would that like. If somebody gives me a discount. Based on my position. Cause that would be a benefit in excess of like $100 on what have you.
That's kind of how I interpret that.
Is that how?
Mhm.
What do you think about that?
No?
I'm trying to think. So the benefit would have to be specifically to them because of their position on a different basis than anybody else.
Right.
Like, if you work in town square, they give all the employees that work in the town square this little card. So we can go eat and get like a 5% discount or something at different restaurants in town square by being employed by somebody on town square. So Starbucks employees get the same discount as city employees, as PF Chang's employees. So we are getting a benefit that not everybody gets, but it's not based just on being a city employee, it's because of where I mean, of our police officers get because they're not employed at this location. So there is some interesting nuances when trying to do that. And if you get it because you're a council member, then that's wrong. Or an elected or appointed official.
But that benefit is not exclusive to a single person.
Yes,
So anybody who works in this building or this piece of property gets it. If we're given to city council. They work out of this building. They're not getting
they don't
anything.
get the benefit.
I'm just saying
They're
that
not employees.
they're not getting anything that nobody else in this environment gets.
Let's set the drafting. Okay, drafting.
So, and as an example to that, it goes back pre-NCAA rule, not today rules, but that was widespread, right? Like you have a student athlete come mow my lawn and I give him a Mercedes. So I mean, like, that. Now you can just do it, but prior to today's rules, that would be an example of like a benefit. So if I'm a council member and somebody wants to give me a car, that would be in excess of $100. But that would also be under like a gift, right? Like, I mean, that still follows the definition of a gift. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
hypothesize out
That's right.
loud, like whether or not,
keep it generic, wide open, it's more than this much. Don't care why you got it, how you got it. Fill out a piece of it.
Has there been any issues with this at all?
No, we just have to keep track of the agenda and make sure we don't put items on consent, so that council member who files can step out of the room. We've never had, as long as I can remember, a problem. We have the same three, I think they get filed every year, just based on what committees they serve on and the agencies they do business with. I've never had a council with complaint about having to file the form. I've never had a voting issue.
Do you think you haven't gotten any forms from appointed board members because they don't think of it as this is something I have to do? What do you think? Just not happening.
Have you been approached?
No.
Just wanted to ask before I got too far into the conversation. I
I'm happy to fill out a form.
I suspect it's because the nature of the business that goes in front of our various boards, we only have a few decision-making boards. And so planning and zoning, they only can approve plats. Everything else has to go to city council for approval. So no matter what their vote is, council by a supermajority vote can overturn it. So, aside from you all and ZBA and BSC, I don't see any opportunities to influence significant decisions. And if you look at the items that are going in front of those boards, ZBA has patio covers, setbacks. It's not a big opportunity to go out there and say, I'll buy you a Mercedes if you let me put a patio cover 1 foot longer than what the code says I can do. BSC, when you're in that situation where it's a significant code issue, and we're talking about whether or not they're gonna do demolition or condemn your building, that those people are not financially in a position to offer these bribes. So I think it's more so that there's just never been an opportunity because the situation doesn't arise the way we're structured. And I would think you and council have probably the best opportunity to be bribed. But because of the fact that you're the ethics committee. I think that would be a little bit bad. But I have not. I've not seen it, and I don't think it's because they don't know to fill out the form. We do get a number of questions of, can I vote on this? Do I need to leave the room? Do I have a conflict? So they are aware of, this is my employer. I'm in this subdivision. It's a general plan and I'm part of Telfair and it's an amendment. They are aware of it. We do get those questions, but I don't see any of them being approached or offered this.
So I'm missing.
I don't believe that.
So Andrew's one recommendation was post versus pre gifts, because that's not mentioned. Do we want to discuss that? Do we think that's something that needs to be an ad? Where was the example? You had, let's see.
W. Brown Rock. 3542, A2. Given in consideration of the favorable exercise of such employee or official judgment or discretion in the past.
What did you
I
think?
said, I don't know, I don't know. That's good. I could go either way.
If we phrase something and put it in, then we'd also have to come up with what happens to you afterwards.
Well, just somebody could file a ethics complaint for our board to review, and then we would decide whether it needs investigating. I mean, it would probably be the same expected outcome as any other section.
So Andrew, for clarification, the 12 months is the part that you're thinking longer than the 12 months that's mentioned here in our code for, favors essentially? Okay.
Maybe we, if we do have that, simply, you will still get a letter, fine, and initially you have an opportunity to give back whatever you were given. Say, I guess I shouldn't have taken this. Here's the gift back, or reimbursing them for the meal or whatever it was. And then if a complaint is filed, it gives an opportunity for us to. Or for them, whoever accepted it, to right the wrong. And we go, good, we're noting it, that's what we should have done, I think.
So is this reading as, I'm a councilman and I vote to give Waste Management our contract, and that was my vote, and then Waste Management takes me to their Phoenix golf tournament the next year. So that was a decision in my past, and then I've received a gift in the future for that. Is that what this is reading like? Cause to influence would be, I'm gonna take you to my Phoenix golf tournament,
Yeah,
and then you're gonna vote on it.
or if you vote on it,
Mhm.
I will take you to my Phoenix.
That would be the
This gotta
perspective,
be
and the other would
the
be,
nexus.
you already voted for this, thank you so much. Come hang out with us in Phoenix.
Either way, you would have to disclose it. But I guess that would be up to the board to determine, you know, the intent and whether or not there's a violation. You know, is it quid pro quo or not? So you sit on council, so you have the obligation to host certain companies in the suite at Smart Financial or at the baseball stadium. Is that, you know, what is the order of it? You know,
Does the order even matter?
and I think that's the question that you would have to decide.
It certainly makes it tougher for us to.
I think it's an interesting
Figure out.
question. I mean, I could see someone doing that to circumvent the act, or to circumvent this,
Mhm.
instead of giving you the golf tournament tickets or the Super Bowl tickets.
Say, once you vote, like, you know, I can take you with me.
Yeah, I can see that, but I guess it's up to this board to determine whether or not there's the intent. As, you know, was that offer made to every council member? We've got 3 tickets to this golf tournament, first come, first serve. Or I'm gonna pick you 3 because you voted for it and I went to you ahead of time. I don't envy y'all.
Yeah.
So the way the code is written right now, we wouldn't even be able to, I guess, hear a complaint about the intent if we don't add something like that generic statement that was brought up earlier. Because we're only limited to whether or not there was a disclosure of gifts.
So I
Is
think
that
that's an
correct?
excellent. Yes, and I think that's a point well made, because if we go back and even if we're not talking past, present, future, what have you, if we have some sort of a general, like, no city official, appointee, or employee, I know that doesn't apply, but individual shall intentionally or knowingly solicit or accept any contribution, gift, or economic benefit with knowledge that is offered with the intent to influence judgment. So whether it was pre or post influence, if you have that statement, then it would be able to rise to a complaint that the board could then investigate.
So on that basis, I could see if there's interest across the board to then add a section that provides just that general statement that if there is something suspect about accepting a gift, disclosure aside, that would be necessary.
My personal opinion is yes, because I would want there to be some sort of language that say, hey, take gifts, do business, do what you need to do, disclose it. But also, like, if you're doing this, do not make decisions and do not accept something to sway your decision. And I think that's the whole idea of the code, right? Like, let's conduct business in an ethical capacity.
Mm-hmm.
That's my 2 cents. What does everyone else think?
I'd like to see the general rule in there.
Steve?
Can you hear me yet? I guess you can't hear me.
We can hear you.
Oh, I'm back.
Yeah, you're back.
I'm back. All right, well, I thought I was out, so I'm more hardcore than all you guys because I live it every day. I'd eliminate the gray area and eliminate the gifts. But that's me. If you've got to do business with me because I'm giving you a gift, I don't need to do business with you.
So at the
So-
very least, it sounds like you would be on board with that general rule.
Yep. The other
Okay.
question I had since I'm back on, does the city of Sugar Land send letters out to their vendors each year regarding gifts, regarding the gift policy?
No, we do not.
And they're usually sent out right before Christmas.
Mhm.
We do send them out?
No, I'm saying they are usually, I'm sorry, I was acknowledging, yes, I've seen those and they do oftentimes send employee and depending on who and where you work before Christmas time, like, hey.
No, I don't believe we send those out, but if you enter into a contract with us, you do have to fill out the state form that talks about any relationship, conflict of interest, and if you provided us gifts. So when you enter into a contract, we require you to fill out that form. We don't send an annual letter saying, don't bribe us. And that may be why the appointed people are not getting anything. We haven't raised the idea.
So we get letters every year from just about every major oil company describing their ethics policy, what's allowed and what's not allowed. What they're allowed to accept, what they're not allowed to accept. And it's in line with what we're saying, you know, a gift of $50 or less is acceptable. You know, lunch is acceptable. Like you were saying earlier, you know, you want to do business with people, you want to know more about them, their services, what they do. And there's no better way to do that is over bite to eat, over lunch. So
And it's 100, not 50, right? Did-
$50 is state law for state employees under the penal code. For City of Sugar Land, we're local government, so it's under the local government code, chapter 176, and it's $100.
okay, so $100. It's a
Okay.
nice lunch.
It just has to be disclosed though. It can be upwards. It's not a
It
cap.
can be more than
Yeah,
that.
you can
but
get a $600 lunch, but you have to write it.
Once you reach that $100, we require you to fill out the, or state law requires you to fill out the form and abstain from voting. You have to leave the room. You cannot participate once you've accepted anything greater than 99. But I'm intrigued by your letter thing, and I'm gonna go back and talk to the IT people and see if we could put something perhaps on the ethics webpage that has that rule of thumb on there, so that anytime you go to that, and I'll talk to our purchasing department and see if I can get some feedback, because that's not something we do right now, but I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, it's raises awareness.
Mhm.
I think that's a great idea.
Maybe some way, they have to acknowledge that they got it. They got it.
You do that every time you fill out a contract with us, but maybe just a general as well.
I like the right before Christmas when there's a lot of stuff going around. Just a reminder, this is our policy.
Or maybe around election season.
You may not know the answer to this question, but how many vendors does the city of Sugar Land deal with?
A lot?
Oh, gosh, 1,000
Or more.
or more, yes, it would be quite a bit from the various things between chemicals for the swimming pool, chemicals for the treatment plants, repairs for vehicles, yes.
So I've,
That'd
not that I was involved, but there's been companies that we've tried to deal with on the sales side, that their key purchasing people have been let out in handcuffs. And you go in to try to give them a pen with your company name on it, they cannot take that pen because it's got your company name on it. So you've got some companies that are dealing with the absolute extreme, the ridiculous extreme, and then other companies that will allow, you know, Super Bowl tickets. So it's crazy.
We would do an annual, there's some clients where there was like an annual campaign coming up on the Christmas holidays, and it was like, 'tis the season within reason. And it was, you know, like a reminder of, hey, excess of this. Where it has to be disclosed and you're no longer eligible to vote on it and things of that nature.
Now, this policy only applies to the elected and appointed
Yes.
officials, not city employees. City employees have a much lower threshold. So if you were to give us something greater than $5 or $10, we share it with everybody. So we have a law firm that likes to send us a Christmas gift every year, and various departments every year get all these frozen tamales offered up in a steamer and say, hey, I'm providing lunch today because I can't take it myself. I have to share it with everybody. People send us cookie trays, and at holidays, we like the holidays because they send us food baskets. And
Right.
everybody gets in the kitchen, and anybody who walks in the kitchen, you get something because you cannot keep it for yourself. If it's alcohol, we have to give it back because we're not allowed to drink at work. But as you can imagine, that would be fun. But yes, so the city employees, unless it's like I guess, a squishy, cushy things, you get stress balls or something at a convention, we're not allowed to take it. We have to share it with everybody.
I worked for a company and part of the rule was if you can't consume it on premises, you can't take it. I can even go and watch.
So, okay, so what my note so far is that you would like us to add a general rule, that's basically from Georgetown,
There's several.
but something along. that
Yeah,
line.
I'm not married to that language, just a general statement that, you know, you should not accept the gift with the intent to influence the decision. And then that takes care of your pre or post, because it's just whether or not you receive this as a bride versus normal business.
So what is a gift if it's not trying to influence?
Thank you.
I think, you know, when you talk about like transportation, lodging, entertainment, some of them had like exceptions for, if you're being honored at some sort of a conference and then they pay to put you up in the hotel and things of that nature. So, I mean, it can look a wide array, but to your question, do we have it defined well enough? I liked Andrew's suggestion of an official who receives a gift instead of gifts that may include so that it broadens that definition, but are we comfortable with how it's currently defined?
It's the current definition.
Yes.
Gift means a financial benefit received or given without equivalent compensation. The term includes lodging, transportation, entertainment, and food. The term does not include a financial benefit received or given on the same terms available to the general public or election campaign contribution.
That doesn't include jewelry, cash, MP3 player. It's not food, it's not transportation, it's not lodging. It means you can take a durable good.
So would you like us to look at definitions of gift and come back with some suggestions for you?
Do we care what it is? Like items of value?
But I mean,
I'm more leaning on that.
anything, it's more than $100 or $50, whatever it is, you gotta tell us.
Yeah, I
So
think
the
Raquel, I
minutes
didn't
back
catch
to
your-
the minutes.
No, I just, rather than, I mean, I guess, of course, it's probably helpful to see how gifts are defined, but I think a good default is just a generic statement around financial benefit.
We can bring you a red line at your next meeting and include these changes. That's our intent going forward. Once you start giving us some solid changes to provide you with a red line.
Okay.
We can certainly do that.
I appreciated the direct not lift, but the reference to the code so that it was a one-from-one checklist as far as what the form had to include. So I felt that took care of needing to, you know, we don't need to, in my opinion, we don't need additional information. Like that covered the basis as far as the disclosure itself, looking at the subsections. So I feel like we're good. I'm good with this. Does anybody have any questions or concerns or comments around what the disclosure should entail. I'm looking at 278A and in the subsection, the bullets 1 through 6 of what information you must provide when you do the disclosure.
This seems pretty comprehensive to me.
Yeah.
As a side note,
Where the gift
if
is.
we add the rule or a rule statement, it may need to be like receipt and disclosure of for like the heading,
Yes.
so that it acknowledges the two, since it's not just the disclosure.
You wanna know where the gift was given or received?
Any problem with on item 6 taking out "are believed"? It's kind of broad.
So
Right,
this
then you
is
go,
me
I'm not-
speculating, but I'm wondering if there are times where a gift is literally believed to exceed the sum where it can't be demonstrated quantitatively. Exactly what that value is.
Like priceless,
Hmm.
like something that, you know, they say priceless, like that? Is that what you mean?
Well, you could have a table at like an event. And then when you have the table, you've got the food value, but you've also got, because they've got the naming rights, the advertising rights, the market value. So how do you determine the actual value of just the meal? You're sitting at that company as a guest, the company gets the benefit of all the marketing. So rather than taking the table dollar amount and dividing it by 8, you come up with what you believe to be that amount. And I only know that because I've had to answer that recently for a council member, how to determine how much this is worth.
And if we know where the gift was received. It was a golfing event or. You know, convention center versus. At their house, a place of business. It would reflect on. What the intent. Of that gift may have been.
All right, so
I like your idea of removing the "are believed," because. All they have to say is, I'm not an appraiser of fine arts and antiques. I didn't know what the painting was worth.
okay,
Steve, what were you saying though? You were, I feel like, about to.
what about fundraisers? The name of fundraiser, child advocates. And I don't know, you see council people, you see city officials at these fundraisers. Are they paying for the tickets or the tickets given to them? What would that be? What would that go under?
Are they there on the official business of the city versus not to, right?
And even people that pay, it's considered a donation. Most of the time.
I'm just putting it out there. I don't know the answer to this.
No, these are open scenarios.
One of the cities had like exemption, like not one of them, multiple cities had exemption language, but one of them had, if I recall, exemption around if you were attending something in the official capacity to represent the city. So if you are there to represent Sugar Land City Council as, official, and you are sitting at a table and you receive dinner and whatever other fundraiser swag that you get sent home with, that's exempt because you were acting on behalf of the city in that capacity.
Okay,
Let me see where I read that. I want to say it likely Dallas because they got so specific. City of San Antonio.
I think it's 29 of 42, is it 3? No, that's an employee, but I don't know if that's.
Here we go. We're so far too actually. This is council members and boards and commission members may request. No, that's not it. Just kidding.
Well, so this one right here says an employee may accept meals, travel, et cetera, to a conference that is, if it's related to the employee's job duties.
I have that under deed tickets where it says city, oh, is that what you just read? City officials may receive tickets to a fundraiser or charity event that benefits a city facility or program, subject to availability. These tickets, but it was one of the exceptions that you can receive these tickets to a fundraiser that benefits the city program. Yep, and it was Dallas.
Also look at page 34, Flower Mound. When they talk about any gift or economic benefit. Maybe that's our definition. Well,
The state calls them non-cash items.
yeah, I agree with you said, they're at the event as a representing the city. I just don't want to get ourselves cornered into a situation and somebody says, hey, what's going on? Now, what if they were sitting at the waste management table? I mean, this whole gift giving is nothing but a big Pandora box. I mean, you can do exception after exception after exception, and I mean, there's so many gray areas in gift giving.
I will tell you that if you say the exception is in their capacity as an elected official, I will never see another gift disclosure form filed.
They can't take that hat off.
That's right, the hat is always on. They are always acting in their capacity as an elected official. If you put that exception there, I have a problem enforcing state law requirements on disclosure.
Uh-huh.
So it would not be a city ethics violation, but it would be a state law violation. They will never take that hat off. Everything they do is in their capacity as an elected official. So I don't want that exception to be there. And I hate to tell you what to do because this is y'all's recommendation. But I would recommend very strongly against giving them an exception because everything they do is in their official capacity. You just give them a free pass.
we won't.
Sorry, well, I'll tell them I said that it's not a problem. I just, they can't take that out.
In their eyes, they never take that hat off.
In my eyes, they can't take the hat
But I'm
off.
saying,
That is who they are.
Mhm.
That is, they signed up to be an elected official, and for those 3 years, that's all they can be. It is too tricky, confusing to try to take that off.
And I agree with that. I don't, hats off to them. They spent a lot of hours doing what they do, including going to a bunch of functions for the city. I'm just being the devil's advocate, I guess.
No, I agree. I just don't, I would not be able to support a recommendation to give them an exception for that. Because I believe that everything they do is in that capacity.
It undermines the rest of the section.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. Okay.
I feel like that's clear.
Sorry.
No,
It makes a difference. if
we
it's in a
accept all
code.
advice.
It makes a difference if it's a code that also applies to employees.
Yeah.
If the employee is going because it's their job, that's one thing.
Mhm. There Steve, based on, and I'm just gonna put it out so that we can all have the discussion, not to open Pandora's box. But Steve, you felt very strongly initially, you know, nothing great, and I'm just making stuff, but don't take gifts. It's a hard no, no gifts, no thank you. You don't need them.
That's extreme, I understand.
No, but I'm just, like, as an example. Do we think there should ever be a limit? Cause there are no limits. It's $100 and then you disclose, or $500 you're in person and disclose. There are no limits. So,
Why, by eliminating all gifts?
no, what I'm saying is, I mean, should there be a limit? Should there be,
Oh.
No, you can't accept
Short-
anything over two.
not like it's zero, but like, we have it open, completely
I think-
open.
I think $100, not to exceed $100 is fair.
But do we wanna put a cap saying, somebody offers you something that's $5,000, you can't accept it no matter what? You have to disclose it if it's over 100, but do we,
While you're in this position, you can't take that Mercedes at all. You know, 'cause
That's correct.
80 or whatever that is.
so do we wanna, I think the question is, do we put a cap on what they can accept as well as a minimum disclosure?
Does anyone do that? Oh, they do?
Well, I can't speak to public, private sector absolutely does that.
Okay,
But
yeah.
they'll do like, at $100, you have to disclose but you cannot accept anything of value greater than $10,000 or $1,000 or whatever. That's not,
While you're in this position.
Yeah.
While you're in this position.
and I'm not saying, that's not necessarily my stance. I just, if we're gonna do a gift section, we should just either come to a consensus that, yes, we should have a cap, or no, as long as it's disclosed and monitored, and then that they know that they're not allowed to vote on it. So after $100, they can't vote on the item anyways.
Right.
Or 500 if they're present. So, I mean, that in and of itself is a check and balance, because, okay, I'm not gonna accept this and give away my authority, my power, my position. Like, this is why I'm here and this is what I'm doing it. So taking the gift just basically negates my role as an elected official. So, I mean, there is, in my opinion, a built-in checks and balance, but, you know, I think we should at least come to have a discussion about it.
But I think the disclosure eliminates some of those anyway. Because who's going to want to disclose that they received the Mercedes? So they just don't accept it. Am I wrong?
I have never seen things getting even close to $1,000.
Okay.
I think probably the biggest one I've seen was the fishing trip. And that was lodging, entertainment and food for a 2-day fishing trip. And I think it was like $100 or something, but
It was how much?
I think it was $500, $600, but it was a huge group of elected officials all went together, and I don't know how many people were in a room or a lodge or however it was. But
They've got like a volume discount or something.
I don't really know, if the company that took them there owned the facility. That is by far the highest I've ever seen was that one fishing trip.
So it doesn't seem to be a rampant issue.
Well, if it is, you're not telling us. I'm trying to think of anybody who's driven a new vehicle lately.
I
But,
think if we add that general rule, we could always further investigate if it ever gets to a point where it's really large. Otherwise, I don't see the need for a cap.
I love that point. That's a good point. And like I said, I personally feel there's checks and balances built in the fact that they can't vote. Right? Like, I mean, you're not gonna continue to accept things that keeps you from acting in your elected capacity. Theoretically.
I would say the fishing trip one was interesting, because it was a company that put it on, but the individual that went, not only were they there as a guest of the company, but they were networking while all these other local officials, and it was really dicey and trying to figure out how to argue it out. Which I guess goes back to the exception of, you don't want it to be an exception if you're in your official capacity, because they would not have been meeting. It was an interesting scenario.
there is some lovely language, to your point, that, would probably get stricken down. But there was this nice little statement that said gifts to state agencies, and this is obviously from that one, but even if legally permissible, may raise questions about impropriety. If the donor is subject to agency regulation or oversight, or engages in a business that can be affected by agency action, then it may be that the donor hopes or expects to gain favor with the agency. Even if that is not the case, it may appear to be so, especially to someone whose interests are different from those of the donor and who may feel at a disadvantage because of the donor's generosity. So I thought, and I don't love this language, I'm not recommending that, but they do talk about perception, right? That, I know, this is getting stricken out, but
This comes back to y'all's.
the conflict of interest. But I found it very interesting that it was in here. Cause it doesn't say you can or you can't, just saying, hey, like, whether the intent was there or not, that, you know, someone may feel disadvantaged by it. Yeah. Not a proposal, just an observation. Any other recommendations or comments? Do we feel the 100 and 500 feel right? They're in alignment
Yeah.
with the regulatory requirements.
The regulatory requirements are 100. The 500 is no longer part of state law for a number of years.
Mhm.
That's just a carryover. So if you want to change that dollar amount, that would be up for discussion. But the 100 is the statutory disclosure number.
I also want to confirm that the receiving of gifts isn't, that it covers the 12 degrees of sangria, nudity, whatever like.
It does.
Right, so, I mean, not that it would happen in this country, but somebody gave my son a $5 million a year job.
Do you want them?
That would have to be disclosed to.
Yes. That would be under section 2-77, conflict of interest.
But here we say official who receives the gift.
So-
Should it apply?
Under state law,
to-
whenever we enter into contract, they do have to disclose that.
Would we go to second week of the year?
What is, well, for the gifts? No, I don't believe.
Right.
We don't.
We do not.
Should.
So it's a gap. It's currently in,
Our ethics, page 3 of 12.
So y'all, I'm gonna have to step away.
Okay.
So we have,
Thank you.
thanks, Raquel. Right, we say spouse, domestic partner, child, stepchild, brother, sister, parent, step parent, niece, nephew, aunt, uncle, grandparent, grandchild. It is section 2-75. Second page, page 3
the
of 12,
definitions.
right?
Yeah, state law.
Do those same relationships apply to the receiving of gifts?
State law does require that, and we would need to correct that.
Okay.
So then it would be something like an official or relative?
Right,
It's-
as you're defined in.
To a certain degree, right?
Second, is what.
Family member means a person related to another person in the first degree of consanguinity or affinity. And family relationship is third degree consanguinity, second by affinity. I have a little circle chart somewhere.
So we would recommend making it in alignment with state law.
Well, what about this D, 2-7A D? It's required to be filed by an official for gifts received by a relative, would that be, no?
Oh.
Our approved in line.
And then the next
It
one.
does.
Yeah, it does.
Then the next one says kinship or personal,
Okay, so we do have the,
This is requirements, A and B do
Okay.
not apply to a gift or other benefit conferred on account of kinship.
so under E, yes, your parent. Or your son, if he's got that $5 million job, is able to buy you things, so you don't have to disclose it as a member of the ethics. Board.
I don't like that.
Your,
It should be that,
your family members, or the purpose of that in state law is to allow family members, your neighbors to give you gifts because of your relationship, independent of what hat you're wearing.
Yes.
but
So
it's-
you get a Mercedes because your next door neighbor owns a Mercedes dealership and he wants you to out there advertising his vehicle. And it's not because you are the ethics board. It's just because your neighbors and he thinks you're a swell guy.
The vendor gave a relative of mine tickets to Hawaii,
No, no, no.
right?
If the vendor is your relative and gave you tickets,
Correct, but I wanna make sure that
but D,
a relative of the elected or appointed official, they get a gift from a vendor that they
within the second and third degree, they have to disclose.
have to disclose it,
Yes,
not just the.
but as Ann pointed out, it's in D. I
I
think.
just wanna make sure.
Is it clear enough?
I can. Received by a relative.
Um,
And we've got relative defined, so.
Yeah. Just making sure.
I'm glad it's in there, because I've been teaching it as it's in there.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it, but I wanna make sure that.
Yeah.
278, A and B.
So I think do we have other proposals or comments around this section? Things that might be missing, need changes?
So what we have decided is we're gonna add a general rule and change the heading related to that. But then were we changing anything around what all is considered a gift? You know, because we talked about adding something that was more inclusive than the lodging, transportation and entertainment.
So my notes say that we're to define or revise the gift definition to be items of value,
Okay.
but not de minimis. And I was gonna look to see if I could find a statutory definition of de minimis.
Right.
And bring that back to you as a red line for your next meeting.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So what section would you like us to research for your next meeting?
I would have thought I had that prepared. I don't. Let's open to suggestions, recommendations. I think we could, if we wanted to like knock out some things, I think we could easily do the prohibition of doing business with the city. That one's pretty cut and dry. I think we could also probably do, maybe not. Actually, scratch that. What about representations and appearances together?
Okay, so what research would you like us to bring back?
You're saying representation and appearances together?
I think these are almost verbatim out of the model code.
That's why I
So
didn't
maybe
do
we
that,
say-
but like, I feel like they're
Be an
pretty,
easy thing.
Yeah,
Say,
easy thing,
keep
give
it,
a couple
keep it,
of
keep it.
that
Yeah.
was the intent.
Yeah.
I also, I mean, we might, if we're gonna go verbatim, I mean, I feel like 280, the prohibition of doing business with the city.
That is not in the model.
Okay, cause that one gets sticky too with it's got. I think the two, and then I'm gonna look at I didn't get a chance to reconcile the TOCs.
Okay,
I ran out of ink. Printing them off, so
I'm not sure why this one popped in the middle of that.
I don't know either, but it's okay.
Okay,
But, I mean, that with the other two sections, we went over today. I don't think we'll go over next time. If, when you're looking at them, if there are other sections that are verbatim,
Okay.
why don't we, like, if you can help us identify those, because then we can get those.
Nothing.
Okay, so did you want us to do research for 281 and 282? Like find samples of other cities?
I would say just like one or two. So if it's strictly from the model or from state law,
Mhm.
I feel like we don't need a whole host of other city samples.
Okay, and then you want us to go through and mark which ones track the model code?
If that's okay, that would help us.
Yeah, and then
Cause then we can focus our bigger meetings on, okay, conflict of interest, doing business with the city and some of the other more
Yeah.
like gray and contentious areas, not contentious, but discussion based.
Okay, so we'll mark up and provide you a list, probably a table of contents that says this is state law,
Mhm.
this is model code, and that's for your next meeting.
Is that enough or too much? Or,
There's not, never too much, there's
Okay.
two of us. It is just
You agree with
Anjali
that?
over there saying, you know,
I see her agree to that.
we've also got Brandon. Brandon likes to do research as well. So is that?
I'm also open, I know I just spit some of those out, so if any of you guys have other sections or another approach, I'm happy to hear it.
sounds good, good plan.
Do we need to set our next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah,
3 weeks from today?
Let me see what the date is.
It'd be April 8th, if I'm not mistaken.
oh, that's the only because I think I'm gonna be. Why am I coming back?
From Austin.
Yeah,
Or the area.
I'll be back by then.
We could do the tax day the following Monday.
Yeah, lobbying.
I'm gonna be out of town that day.
April 8th is a Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fine. I think I should be there.
Are we keeping it on Tuesdays or switching it to Monday now?
Today's Monday.
today's Monday.
We can't do Tuesdays because we have city council and planning and zoning and we will not have rooms available because it also
Oh, today,
has.
I'm sorry, today is too long of a drive up here.
It's almost Tuesday, if that makes you feel better.
In Australia, it's already Tuesday.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, April 8th is good with me.
It is.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
I can call in if I'm driving.
Yeah.
Post
Okay.
pictures.
okay. We have a plan for next time. We have a meeting for next time. Could I get a motion to
I
adjourn?
make a motion that we adjourn this time and conduct our meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, folks.
Yes, 5 and 6.